Hare Krishna devotees, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances, all courage to Srila Guru and Gauranga. So this is our lecture or a discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where we were left till that point, and it is in our last discussion we discussed about some basic prayers and information of Bhagavad Gita. So now we move further towards our discussion. So before start, let us offer Mangala Charan prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Padamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishivanu Sade Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaurtuse Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So in our last discussion we have discussed about why Prabhupada has provided this kind of version of Bhagavad Gita and what is actually the Bhagavad Gita is about. So in our earlier paragraph, Prabhupada started with an example of Bhagavad Gita. Why is the requirement of Bhagavad Gita as it is? Because at that time so many editions are available. But Prabhupada has explained none of them are considered to be authoritative, because every one of edition the author has explained Bhagavad Gita in his own way or by his personally motivated interpretations. So that loses the Bhagavad Gita's essence. That's why Prabhupada has written this glorious translation just to provide as it is message of it that Krishna has described to Arjuna. And after that Prabhupada has given an example of medicine. A person who are taking medicine has to take medicine as per the direction of physician, not by his own whim or whim of his one of the friend. It is to be as per prescription provided. So likewise Bhagavad Gita should be accepted as it is. It was instructed by Lord Shri Krishna, because the position of Krishna is not ordinary person, he is a supreme personality of Godhead, and it was also accepted by Arjuna and as well as all other acharyas like Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarka Swami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many other authorities of knowledge in the line of disciplic succession. And Lord himself also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in one of the verses of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Matta paradaram nanyat kinchit asti dhanam jaya mai sarvamidam proktam sutre mani gaya niva. So likewise also this Bhagavad Gita is not about 5,000 years ago. In 4th chapter also description is there. Bhagavad Gita is already told by Krishna before millions of years to the sun god. So verse is there likewise. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavam aham avyayam vivasvan mahimanave praha manur ikshvakave bravit. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu sakalainam hata yogo nastha prantava. Sa evyam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana bhakto sime sakha chuti rasyam etaduttama. Sa evyam maya taddeya yoga prokta puratana bhakto sime sakha cheti rasyam etaduttamam. So likewise this is given, and what is the secret of understanding Bhagavad Gita is we have to be a devotee of Lord Krishna. If we are not devotee of Lord Krishna, then this science of Bhagavad Gita is difficult for understanding, and it must be received through disciplic succession. Likewise, the kind of relationship is also provided. So the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of the 5 different ways. First, one may be the devotee in the passive state, devotee is an active state, devotee as a friend, as a parent, and as a conjugal lover. The topmost relation is lover of God, like Radharani and all other gopis who had relationship like this. Arjuna was in relationship as a friend and as well as devotee. That's why Lord instructed the teachings of Srimad Bhagavad Gita to him. He was a perfect person to receive the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And also Arjuna is also a representative of all above living entities like us. So specifically Lord explained Bhagavad Gita to all the living entities who are in this material world and in ignorance of in different modes of nature. And likewise they wanted to engage in supreme transcendental services of the Lord. And that is the means of real satisfaction. Only by serving Lordship we can be satisfied. So this is the crux that we already discussed. Now we move towards forward, and also yes, that we discussed Bhagavad Gita should be discussed or taken up in the spirit of devotion. One should not think that he is equal to Krishna, or I think he is an ordinary person or a very great personality, but Krishna is not none other than Supreme Personality of Godhead. With this faith only we can realize the instructions of Srimad Bhagavad Gita with submissive attitude. So that is already discussed. And the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from the nescience of material existence. So main purpose is like that. And also we have to surrender to the Lord Krishna. If we surrender, then Bhagavad Gita, if Arjuna is not surrendered to Krishna, and in the verse is there, Karpanya dosho pahatasvabhava chamitam dharma samudya cheta yasya chitam bhuvitam me sishyasteham shadimam praparam. If Arjuna is not still like that, then Krishna is not going to teach. So before getting any knowledge, we have to submit to the authorities. If we submissive, then knowledge is provided. So likewise I have discussed. Now we move towards forward our reading. So start with, Lord Krishna descends specifically to reestablish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. Even then, out of many human beings who awaken, there may be one who actually enters the spirit of understanding his position, and for him this Bhagavad Gita is spoken. Actually, we are all followed by the tiger of nescience, but the Lord is very merciful upon living entities, especially the human beings. To this end, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, making his friend Arjuna as his student. Being an associate of Lord Krishna, Arjuna was above all ignorance. But Arjuna was put into ignorance on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to question Lord Krishna about the problems of life, so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of future generations of human beings and chalk out the plan of life. Then men could act accordingly and perfect the mission of human life. The subject of Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. I repeat, the subject of Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained, and then the constitutional position of the living entities, jivas. There is ishwara, which means controller, and there are jivas, the living entities which are controlled. If a living entity says that he is not controlled but he is free, then he is insane. The living being is controlled in every aspect, at least in his conditioned life. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, and the subject matter deals with the ishwara, the supreme controller, and the jivas, the controlled living entities, prakriti, material nature, and time, the duration of existence of the whole universe or the manifestation of material nature, and karma, activities, are also discussed. The cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. From the Bhagavad Gita, we must learn what God is, what living entities are, what Prakriti is, what the cosmic manifestation is, and how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of living entities are. Out of these 5 basic subject matters in Bhagavad Gita, it is established that the Supreme Godhead, out of these 5 basic subject matters in the Bhagavad Gita, it is established that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Krishna, or Brahman, or a Paramatma, you may use whatever you name you like, this is the greatest of all. The living beings are in equality like Supreme Controller. For instance, the Lord has control over the universal affairs, over material nature, etc. As will be explained in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita, material nature is not independent. She is acting under the direction of the Supreme Lord. As Lord Krishna says, Prakriti is working under my direction. Maya dakshena Prakriti. When we see wonderful things happening in the cosmic nature, we should know that behind this cosmic manifestation, there is a controller. Nothing could be manifested without being controlled. It is childish not to consider the controller. For instance, a child may think that automobile is quite wonderful to be able to run without a horse or other animal pulling it. But a sane man knows the nature of automobile's engineering arrangement. He always knows that behind the machinery there is a man, a driver. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is a driver under whose direction everything is working. Now the jivas, or the living entities, have been accepted by the Lord, as we will note in the later chapters, as its parts and parcels. A particle of gold is also gold, a drop of water from ocean is also salty, and similarly, we are the living entities, being part and parcel of Supreme Lord, or Supreme Controller, Ishwara, or a Bhagavan. Lord Shri Krishna have all qualities of Supreme Lord in minute quantity because we are minutes, Ishwaras, subordinate Ishwaras. We are trying to control nature, as presently we are trying to control space or planets, and this tendency to control is there because it is in Krishna. But although we have a tendency to lord it over material nature, we should know that we are not the Supreme Controller. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. What is material nature? This is also explained in the Gita as inferior Prakriti. Inferior nature. The living entity is explained as the Supreme Prakriti. Prakriti is always under control, whether inferior or superior. Prakriti is female, and she is controlled by the Lord just as the activities of wife are controlled by the husband. Prakriti is always subordinate, predominated by the Lord, who is the predominator. The living entities and material nature are both predominated, controlled by the Supreme Lord. According to the Gita, the living entities, although part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are to be considered Prakriti. This is clearly mentioned in the 7th chapter, with 5th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Aparayam itastanyam. This Prakriti is my lower nature. Aparayam itastva anyam. Prakritim vidhi me param. Jiva bhutam mahabaho. Yayidam dharayate jagat. And beyond this, there is another Prakriti, Jiva Bhutan, the living entity. Prakriti itself is considered by 3 qualities: the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Above this mode, there is eternal time, and by combination of these modes of nature and the control and purview of eternal time, there are activities which are called karma. These activities are being carried out from time immemorial, and we are suffering or enjoying the fruits of our activities. For instance, suppose I am a businessman and have worked very hard with intelligence and have amassed a great bank balance, then I am an enjoyer. But when I say I have lost all my money in business, then I am sufferer. Similarly, in every field of life, we enjoy the results of our work or we suffer the results. This is called karma. Ishwara, the Supreme Lord, Jiva, the living entity, Prakriti, nature, eternal time, and karma activities are all explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Out of these five, the Lord, the living entities, material nature, and time are eternal. The manifestation of Prakriti may be temporary, but it is not false. Some philosophers say that the manifestation of material nature is false, but according to the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, or according to the philosophy of the Vaishnavas, this is not so. The manifestation of world is not accepted as false, it is accepted as real, but temporary. It is likened unto a cloud which moves across the sky, or the coming of the rainy season which nourishes the grain. As soon as rainy season is over and as soon as cloud goes away, all the crops which were nourished by the rain dry up. Similarly, this material manifestation takes place at a certain interval, stays for a while, and then disappear. Such are the working of Prakriti, but this cycle is working eternally. Therefore, Prakriti is eternal. It is not false. The Lord refers to this as my Prakriti. This material nature is the separated energy of the Supreme Lord. And similarly, the living entities are also the energy of Supreme Lord, but they are not separated. They are eternally related. So, the Lord, the living entity, material nature, and time are all interrelated and are all eternal. However, the other item, karma, is not eternal. The effect of karma may be very old-ended. We are suffering or enjoying the results of our activities from time immemorial, but we can change the result of our karma or our activity. And this change depends on the perfection of our knowledge. We are engaged in various activities. Undoubtedly, we do not know what sort of activities we should adopt to gain relief from the actions and reactions of all these activities. But this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The position of ishwara is that the supreme consciousness, the jivas or the living entities being parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also conscious. Both of the living entity and material nature are explained as Prakriti, the energy of Supreme Lord, but one of the two, the Jiva, is conscious, and other, Prakriti, is not conscious. That is the difference. Therefore, the Jiva Prakriti is called superior because Jiva has consciousness which is similar to the Lord's. The Lord's is supreme consciousness. However, and one should not claim that the Jiva, the living entity, is also supremely conscious. The living being cannot be supremely conscious at any stage of his perfection, and the theory that he can be so is misleading theory. Conscious he may be, but he is not perfectly or supremely conscious. The distinction between the Jiva and the Ishwara will be explained in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is a Kshetrajna, conscious, and he is also living being, but the living being is conscious of his particular body, whereas the Lord is conscious of all bodies, because he lives in the heart of every living being. He is conscious of psychic movement of the particular jivas. We should not forget this. It is also explained that the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is living in everyone's heart as Ishwara, as the controller, and that he is giving direction for the living entity to act as he desires. The living entity forgets what to do. The living entity forgets what to do. First of all he makes determination to act in a certain way, and then he is entangled in acts of reactions of his own karma. After giving up one's life of one type of body, After giving up one type of body, he enters another type of body as we put on and take off all clothes. As the soul thus migrates, he suffers the actions and reactions of his past activities. These activities can be changed when the living being is in the mode of goodness, insanity, and understands what sort of activities he should adopt. If he does so, then all actions and reactions of his past activities can be changed. Consequently, karma is not eternal. Therefore, we stated that the 5 items ishwara, Jiva Prakriti, time and karma, 4 are eternal, whereas karma is not eternal. The Supreme Conscious, ishwara, is similar to the living entity in this way. Both the consciousness of the Lord and that of the living entities are transcendental. It is not that consciousness is generated by association of matter. That is a mistaken idea. The theory that consciousness develops under the certain circumstances of material combination is not accepted in the Bhagavad Gita. Consciousness may be pervertedly reflected by covering the material circumstances, just as light reflected through the color glass maybe appears to be certain color, but the consciousness of the Lord is not materially affected. Lord Krishna says, Maya Dakshena Prakriti. When he descends into the material universe, his consciousness is not materially affected. If he were so affected, he would be unfit to speak on transcendental matter as he does in the Bhagavad Gita. One cannot say anything about the transcendental world without being free from materially contaminated consciousness. I repeat, one cannot say anything about the transcendental world without being free from materially contaminated consciousness. So, the Lord is not materially contaminated. Our consciousness at the present moment, however, is materially contaminated. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that we have to purify this materially contaminated consciousness. In pure consciousness, our actions will be dovetailed to the will of Ishwara, and that will make us happy. It is not that we have to cease all activities. Rather, our activities are to be purified, and purified activities are called bhakti. Activities in bhakti appears to be like ordinary activity, but they are not contaminated. An ignorant person may see that a devotee is acting or working like an ordinary man, but such a person with poor fund of knowledge does not know that the activities of devotee or the Lord are not contaminated by impure consciousness or matter. They are transcendental to the 3 modes of nature. We should know, however, that this point our consciousness is contaminated. When we are materially contaminated, we are called conditioned. False consciousness is exhibited under the impression that I am the product of material nature. This is called false ego. One who absorbs in the thoughts of bodily conceptions cannot understand his situation. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to liberate one from the bodily conception of life, and Arjuna put himself in this position in order to receive this information from the Lord. One must become free from the bodily conception of life. That is the preliminary activities for the transcendentalist. One who wants to become free, who wants to become liberated, must first of all learn that he is not this material body. Mukti or liberation means freedom from material consciousness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, the definition of liberation is given. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also the definition of liberation is given. Mukti means liberation from contaminated consciousness of this material world and situation in pure consciousness. All the instructions of Bhagavad Gita are intended to awaken this pure consciousness. And therefore, we find at the last stage of Gita's instructions that Krishna is asking Arjuna whether he is now in pure consciousness or purified consciousness. Purified consciousness means acting in accordance with the instructions of the Lord. This is the whole sum and substance of purified consciousness. Consciousness is already there because we are the part and parcel of the Lord. But for us, there is an affinity of being affected by the inferior modes. But the Lord, being the Supreme, is never affected. That is the difference between the Supreme Lord and the conditioned souls. What is consciousness? This consciousness is I am. Then what I am? What am I? I repeat, what is this consciousness? This consciousness is I am. Then what am I is contaminated consciousness. I am means I am the Lord of all I survey. I am the enjoyer. The world revolves because every living being thinks that he is the Lord and creator of material world. Material consciousness has two psychic divisions. One is that I am the creator, another is that I am the enjoyer. But actually the Supreme Lord is the both creator and the enjoyer. And the living entity, being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is neither the creator nor the enjoyer, but cooperator. He is created and enjoyed. He is the created and enjoyed. For instance, a part of machine cooperates with the whole machine. A part of the body cooperates with the whole body. The hands, feet, eyes, legs, and so on are all parts of the body. But they are not actually the enjoyers. The stomach is the enjoyer. The legs move, the hands supply food, the teeth chew, and all parts of the body are engaged in satisfying the stomach because the stomach is the principal factor that nourishes the body's organization. Therefore, everything given to the stomach. One nourishes the tree by watering its root. One nourishes the tree by watering its root, and one nourishes the body by feeding the stomach. For if the body is to be kept in healthy state, then the part of the body must cooperate to feed the stomach. Similarly, the living Lord is the enjoyer and the creator, and we as subordinate living beings are meant to cooperate to satisfy Him. This cooperation will actually help us. Just as food taken by the stomach will help other parts of the body. If the finger of the hand thinks that they should take the food themselves instead of giving it to the stomach, then they will be frustrated. The central figure of creation and of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, and the living entities are cooperator. By cooperation they enjoy. The relation is also like that of the master and the servant. If master is fully satisfied, then the servant is satisfied. Similarly, the Supreme Lord should be satisfied. Although the tendency to become the creator and the tendency to enjoy the material world are there also in the living entities, because these tendencies are in the Supreme Lord who has created and manifested cosmic world. It is also explained in the Gita that impersonal Brahman is also subordinate to complete. Brahman is more explicitly explained in the Brahma Sutra to be like the rays of the sunshine. The impersonal Brahman is the shining rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman is in complete realization of the absolute whole. And so also is the conception of Paramatma in the 12th chapter. There it shall be seen that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottama, is above both impersonal Brahman and the partial realization of Paramatma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Satchidananda Vigraha. The Brahma Samhita begins in this way: Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is the primal cause, and He is the very form of eternal. So with this we discuss the part 2 of this discussion. It is all about the 5 basic principles of Bhagavad, which is about ishwara, prakriti, jiva, kala, karma. So after that we are going to do one by one other parts. So this is all about the picture form of Bhagavad Gita, in which describes about the details. First of all is about our founder Acharya of ISKCON, then the spiritual master of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and after spiritual master, and in that way all disciplic section is provided. And the verses based on the verses that details are given, and that the details we discuss in detail one by one. Okay, so thank you so much for hearing this discussion. So next we are starting with that purpose. Thank you. Your servant Griyesh Naivan.